This is a piece of Montana Sapphire. This piece has been heated, and I was able to pick up some Montana Sapphire, a small parcel, the last visit to the Tucson show, and or shows actually. And I also picked up a parcel of unheated Montana Sapphire, but this has been heated, and I'm going to use this piece for our project. And this piece of sapphire weighs in at 6.63 carats. So for our Montana Sapphire, I need to make a flat spot to attach the dop to that's going to hold it in place while I cut the pavilion. So I'm looking for a flat spot that will be the upper half of the stone. So I use a rather rough lap. I use a 340 grit topper, and just to grind a flat spot. You don't want too fine of a lap because you want those scratches in there, because that helps the adhesive attach to the stone to the dop. So you just grind that flat spot by hand. Doesn't have to be much because that's going to be the table, just enough for the table, and it'll actually be less than that, but you don't want to grind too much off. So that's what I'm going to use to attach the stone to the dop. So this is the modeling clay that I'll use to help set the stone on the dop. So this will be on the bottom part of the stone, which is the part that we didn't grind flat. So that not flat piece will get pushed into this modeling clay. And one box of modeling clay, one small box you get from wherever you get modeling clay, Play-Doh kind of stuff, it never dries out, and that one box will last you forever. You just continue to use it. So you're going to put this on the dop that's going to be on the bottom of the stone, put the stone on top of it and push it down into the modeling clay where it'll form an impression where the part of the bottom part's not flat, and that'll hold your stone in place while you glue the top part to the flat part of your stone. Okay, so I put a larger dop, this is a temporary dop, on the top, and that helps me. It's large, almost as large as the stone, helps me center the stone where I want it. A smaller dop, it's hard to center the stone. This larger dop makes it real easy to center that stone in the dop. Then, when you get it pretty well centered, switch out your dops with the dop you're going to use, in this case this dop, and your stone's already centered, so you don't have to try to center again. If I was trying to center this dop in the stone, you can see that you're not exactly sure where center would be. It'd be a little tougher, so that's why I use a larger dop to start with. Then I push this stone transfer fixture down, pushing the stone into the clay, into the modeling clay, and it helps hold the stone a little bit so that I can put the adhesive on it. The stone won't move. So then I use one drop of my super glue. And push it down onto the stone. Tighten the dop. I turn it over to make sure the dop runs back onto this glue runs back onto the dop. And that's the good part about this UV activated super glue, is it doesn't set up until you hit it with the UV light. And then it sets up in about 2 seconds. And after about 2 seconds, you're ready to cut your stone. should have been more than enough time to set this UV activated super glue, so you can tell when you touch it that it's hard as a rock. It's all set. We're ready to cut our sapphire. So now for an awesome round design to cut this Montana Sapphire into. Now I recently cut a design called Sunset Vista by Arya Akavan, and BOPIE, my wife, really liked the design. So I think I'll cut this same design, this time using Montana Sapphire, and see what BOPIE thinks of this design in sapphire. Arya's design can be found on the website called Gemology Project, and just as a reminder, Arya says that he prefers to cut this design using sunset tourmaline, but that the design worked great in gemstones of any refractive index from topaz to rutile. So this design will perform well in our Montana Sapphire. But I definitely want to try to cut this design at least one more time using sunset tourmaline at some point, just to see how it looks. So stay tuned. For my Montana Sapphire, because it's corundum and a very hard gemstone, I'm going to start preforming it with my 240 grit topper lap. It's a small stone, so it should make pretty quick work of it. So my 240 grit topper made pretty quick work to preforming our stone. I still need to bring the pavilion down a little bit. I didn't quite form a culet here. But I only cut the first line of instructions. There's 2 more lines of instructions that'll bring that in a little bit. But I probably need to bring it down a little bit more. And there's a piece here that when I bring the pavilion down will help clean that up. Other than that, pretty much that's all I needed with my 240. So now I'll use a 600 grit topper. Okay, I've gone over my sapphire with my 600 grit topper. And I did cut the second P2 line of instruction on the pavilion. Probably didn't need to. It cut very fast. Probably should have saved that for a finer lap, but went ahead and did it. So now I normally would go to my 12M, which is about a 1500 grit lap, but I've heard from a lot of cutters that 1200 grit causes what's called orange peel on sapphire. So I don't want to get orange peel on my orange peel facets. So I'm going to skip that. And I know that many of you will, in the comments, will tell me that you use 1200 grit lap all the time on sapphires and you've never had a problem, and that's fine. But I do want to skip my 12M this time and go from a 600 grit topper to 8000 grit diamond on a zinc lap. Okay, going from a 600 grit to a 8000 grit, it has not been a problem at all. Just wanted to show you, I've cut these, the first 2 facets on the P1 line of instruction, the first 2 of this one and this one, and you can see everything else is 600 grit, and those first 2 are the 8000 grit. So going from the 600 to the 8000, not a problem. Again, a lot of fasteners tell me that the reason you skip the 1200 is because it causes orange peel, and my experience in cutting is that for every cutter who says one thing, there's other cutters who disagree. So I'm sure there are cutters who use the 1200 grit when cutting sapphire, and it's their go-to lap, and it works for them. And that's just kind of the nature of cutting. It's kind of what works for you. Finished polishing the bottom half, the pavilion of our Montana Sapphire, and so now I'll transfer the stone and cup the upper half. I polished it with 60,000 grit diamond on a bat lap. Okay, I finished polishing up the upper half of our Montana Sapphire, so now I will set up the stone to cut and polish the table, and then we'll be done with this gemstone. I finished polishing the table with 60,000 grit diamond on a bat lap. So now I'll soak our stone in acetone to remove the adhesive, and then we can weigh it and measure it and send it off to BOPIE. Today I cut a beautiful Montana Sapphire into a round design called Sunset Vista. The final gemstone looks great. As far as the design, Sunset Vista, this design is suitable for gem cutters of any level. I think any gem cutter could tackle this design, so I'd recommend you give it a try. It's fun to cut. Please let me know in the comments what you think of the gemstone and of this design, and as always, happy faceting, everyone.